Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this session. My name is Caroline Allams. I'm co-founder of Natterhub. And most importantly, I am also a parent. So I am on this digital parenting pathway with you. My children are 14 and 18. So alongside all of the knowledge that I bring around online safety, digital citizenship, I also bring my parenting skills. My background is education. I've got over 15 years school experience. I've been a deputy head, a pastoral lead, and most importantly, a teacher. So this morning, we're going to be looking at the landscape of our children's digital worlds. Hopefully we'll be able to give you some things that you can reflect on. You'll realize that you are already doing what's needed in preparing our children for a digital world. So hopefully that comes in the form of some reassurance, and also some things for you to consider moving forwards. I'm going to be showing a video that hopefully will also give you a view of the situation that we're currently in. But this session really is in celebration of Safer Internet Day, which is next week. We're leading up to that. Hopefully your children's school is getting involved. While Safer Internet Day is a great opportunity to raise the profile of what we need to do to prepare our children for future-facing learners, it's really important that we're considering every day as Safer Internet Day. So let's move on really quickly. I'm going to just give you a really brief overview of what Natterhub does. So Natterhub is a safe-gated platform that's designed specifically for primary schools to teach children the soft skills that underpin positive digital citizenship. So what we do through these interactive lessons that are all aligned to the curriculum, we're looking to build children's digital resilience. We're creating the awareness of the importance of online empathy, so that they can be the best digital citizen possible. And overriding all of this is developing what we call the critical thinking skills. So that's really getting children to make the right decisions at the right time in order for them to be safe and savvy online. We work with around 15,000 schools in over 80 countries around the world. I've been working on Natterhub since for the last 13 years. So I've lived in this space for quite a long time. So let's have a think about raising children in the smartphone era. I think it's fair to say that as parents, we're all trying to do the best for our children. And at a time when in the media we're hearing so much conflicting information, it's really difficult to know that we're making the right choices. And in just 2 decades, there's been so much progress. So just in 2005, 20 years ago or so, we were all on brick phones. In 2007, suddenly we had this supercomputer in our pockets. 2012 brought the launch of 4G, so we've had this ability to access the internet anywhere we like. And in 2020, this explosion of short form content, and here we are, where pretty much every child is online.
Hey kiddo, it's about time for bed, okay?
Okay.
Well, remember, there's a box in the corner over there with all the pornographic material that's ever been made in the world, even the really weird stuff that could scar you for life. I'm trusting you not to look in there, okay?
Okay.
Feelings are for losers.
Oh, and this guy's gonna be in your corner all night just randomly spewing out hateful things. Just ignore him, okay? While I'm thinking of it, there's an order form on your desk where you can purchase illegal drugs. The mean girls from your school are gonna be standing there talking about you all night. And this Russian hacker's gonna keep asking for your password.
I'm not a hacker. Amazon customer service.
Just need you to ignore him, okay? Love you, buddy.
We ask too much of our kids when we give them a smartphone. Let's change the norm. Together.
Maybe we go around the room and share social security numbers.
Join the movement at smartphonefreechildhoodus.com.
I'll get it anyway.
We're hearing lots of calls for smartphone-free childhood, and this is is for you as parents to be able to have an informed opinion of where we are with children in a digital space and what the impact of AI means for our role in nurturing our children and holding on to their childhood. But it's important that we have an overview and we look at all the views from every angle. So age 6 to 7, 1 in 3 children already have a smartphone. Age 9 is now the average age where children get their own smartphone. Only a couple of years ago, that was age 11. So already we're seeing it shift down further into the primary age range. And by 12, 90% of children have a smartphone. And what does this mean on brain development? Well, you may have heard of Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, that's really had critical acclaim. He claims that there's been this global decline in education since 2012, an absolute rise of mental health issues since 2012, and we're reaching epidemic proportions of psychological problems. We're seeing a dramatic increase in what's termed depression for children, in both boys and girls. And the impact on brain development is that we have overly protected our children from being outside in open spaces, and we've underprotected them in online spaces. So what's this actually, how is this actually impacting their neurological patterns and their child development? Well, we are seeing a global problem of online vulnerability. And these statistics, whilst they will not be surprising, and they are still alarming. We work very closely with the Internet Watch Foundation. If you're not familiar with them, they're an organization that remove images and videos of children who've been groomed or coerced into creating online sexual content. We've seen a huge increase of over 1,000% since the pandemic. And the biggest increase in this, what's called somewhat unhelpfully self-generated material, comes from girls, over 90% girls, aged 7 to 11. So this is absolutely a primary school concern, that children are being coerced into creating this content. We should also mention that the issues facing gender bias for boys in early stages of secondary school, and you'll have heard around the issues around sextortion. So we've got online vulnerability that is very concerning and is on the rise, and AI brings a whole new layer of vulnerability. In terms of child development, we're also seeing when children start school that it's claimed that 50% of teachers are saying that children are not ready for school. Now, as educators, we believe that we need to educate children from wherever they are when they arrive in school. So I'm not really keen on this term school readiness, but for children who are incorrectly using books, we've got almost 30% of children who are tapping and swiping on a page as though they're using an electronic device. And we know that we're seeing a decline in children's language development and the ability to process and respond to basic instructions. There's increasing amounts of research now being done on the impact of technology on our youngest children, and the use of technology as a default to satiate children when they are in boring situations, whether they are being asked to wait for parents, whether they're sitting in a doctor's waiting room, sitting on the bus, getting in the back of a car, that the default is quickly to give them a screen so that their children are losing their ability to generate curiosity, to self-soothe, to regulate their own emotions without the distraction of a fast-paced environment to distract them. So lots of things to consider around their development, and how important it is for us to allow children this downtime away from distraction. When we think about AI, we know that increasingly AI is embedded into software that we are using and accessing all of the time. And this is extending obviously into the kinds of spaces that children are engaging with online, and also into toys. So for example, bears and bunnies or little hearts that they can play with, that will interact with them to create this parasocial relationship, that they feel that they've got this virtual toy that will interact and tailor the content to the interests of the children. But we need to be clear that AI chatbots can provide inaccurate, harmful, or inappropriate content. Of course, misinformation, bias, violence, or even sexual content, because they're not designed with the same robust child safety measures. It's really concerning that now we know that 78% of vulnerable children are using AI chatbots as friends, and 26% of children say if they've got a problem, they'd rather first of all check in with AI than speak to a real person. So we are already in a situation where AI is becoming a significant person in our children's world. So we need to consider, is it the tech, is it the behavior around the tech, or is it both? Could have actually been about half an hour long, the issues that teachers talk to us all the time about, the issues that they are facing when their children come to school, because as we know that children arrive at school and they bring all of their home experiences with them, and our schools have got an almost what you could say is a wicked problem. It feels like a problem that can never be resolved at times, because it's constantly evolving. Schools are trying their best to manage both school and digital playgrounds. Now, I'm sure there'll be many of you who are teachers, so you will know what happens in playgrounds. As parents, we know when we take our children to a physical playground, the kinds of interactions that happen, and children are trying to make sense of their social situations and resolve any conflict or any issues that occur. They need to learn how to hold back if they don't want to take a risk. They may be asked to do something by a friend that they're not ready to do, and when you are face to face with a friend, you can read visual cues, you can read body language, you've got a lot more information than when you are in a virtual playground, when you are in a virtual space without any of those cues. For schools and for teachers trying to manage playground situations, but then every morning when children come in with increasing numbers of issues that have been brought up through gaming or through group chats, it's a real minefield for teachers to work their way through. And we know that the primary age range is a really, really important, critical stage for this social and emotional development. And really good pastoral care is the foundation for everything else to happen on top of it. So if we think about social and emotional development being the really rich, fertile soil for the seeds of teaching and learning to go on to, we need to make sure that we get it right. So this is not a nice to have. This needs to go alongside all of our children reaching their full potential. But maybe we need to, it's time for us to understand that our children have two kinds of playground now. Both are valid play spaces and well loved by children. Our children they didn't ask to be born into this digital era, but here we are. They are here. They have been born into a time when their parents are extremely distracted by technology. We are all dependent on and distracted by technology, and children see this. One of the strongest forms of learning is mimicry, and our children are growing up in a world where they are under no illusion that our devices are extremely important to us, and when we are distracted, they will consider that the devices are more important than they are at certain times. And I say this without judgment. I am also a parent, and I've had many situations where my children need my attention, but I'm in the middle of doing something on a screen. But what if our mission is to prepare children for this hybrid world? What does that look like? Well, we're aiming to reduce online vulnerability. We want to protect their well-being. We absolutely need to be clear on supporting the human parts of their life and supporting the social and emotional development if we are to develop smart, savvy digital children. And really this is a plea that we really pull together to preserve childhood. It's short, it's getting shorter. But what is it that we need to do as parents? AI is really bringing to the fore the human skills that children need in order to cope with the part that AI plays in our world. As we've said before, critical thinking, language skills are enormously important, but ironically are the skills that are being eroded by a dependency on technology. So anything that we can do to develop our language skills, this means reading with your children every single day, if possible. This means not, resisting the temptation to replace that reading time with a device. It may be that audiobooks absolutely have their place, and it may be that looking at a story or listening to a story through a screen is a really good idea at certain times. But I would really request that you absolutely protect and nurture the opportunity to read with your children, and that means even if they are already reading, to continue to read to them as long as possible, because through that reading time you get the chance to ask and develop the critical thinking skills, understand the nuance of the language, talk about how the characters might be feeling. Would you trust that character? What do you think is going to happen next? How do you feel about this situation? You are unpacking all of that important stuff, which is the best way to develop the critical thinking skills in order to reduce the vulnerability that they will have in different spaces, and to build that digital resilience. Problem solving comes through stories, empathy and respect. Digital literacy has a direct correlation with generalized literacy, and unfortunately we are also asking our children to self-regulate, which is a whole new webinar, because we shouldn't be responsibilizing our children with their own online safety, but we don't yet have the proper commitment from the platforms and software companies in order to help effectively with regulation. So we need to educate our children, and we need to be aware of the issues as parents so that we can properly protect our children online. So how do we learn to be safe? Well, if we think about, nudging our children towards independence, whether that's walking across the road, a busy road by themselves, riding a bike, or learning to swim, we precede that independence with an education. So we hold their hands when they walk across the road, we put stabilizers on their bike, there are swimming lessons and armbands before they get thrown into the pool. But we educate them, and we are there by their side in order to create that safe moment for independence. How we learn to be kind is that we demonstrate kindness, we show kindness, and we encourage kindness and kind acts. And how we learn to be confident is giving children safe risk. So we give them opportunities to move outside of their comfort zone in very small baby steps, so that they can learn that they can be confident in those spaces. When we think about what that looks like for an AI world, it means that we need to encourage children at the right time to practice safe online interactions. We need them to nurture healthy digital habits and provoke regular, impactful conversations with them. We need to understand the genre of digital communication. This might differ with how we speak verbally to our children, and it's really, really important that we talk to our children. Now, in order for all of this to happen, it doesn't happen by us parents giving our children a device and presuming that they'll be okay. There are things that we need to do. We need to consider that online safety and AI safety is a mindset. We want to encourage curiosity. We want our children to be nosy. We want them to, I know it, a child asking repeated questions is not always welcome, but we need to encourage curiosity. We absolutely need children to be curious and build this self-awareness of what it means to be online. So we're fostering this safe questioning, and what we mean by safe questioning is we are helping children ask, does this feel right? It doesn't mean that you have to be an expert. It's just about, what would you do in this situation? What do you think is happening here? This means time spent with our children and getting them to ask questions. Connection is the first form of protection. So in a world where our children are dealing with so many different complex, digitally intense and if you like, socially fragile, the solution to this has to be profoundly human. We have to create this connection with our children, and kindness starts offline before we can expect it to show up online. When your children feel connected to you and safe, they're more resilient to online harms. And we can model online safety without being experts. And this means around the way that we talk to our children. So setting boundaries kindly, talking openly about our feelings. And this is something that often gets missed in the day-to-day. Everybody's busy, everybody's got so many responsibilities, everybody has to be in a million different places, whether virtually or in person. but we need to be talking about our feelings, and that's not always comfortable. It's not always comfortable for families, you know, on certain days or at certain times, but we need to factor in that if we can talk openly about feelings, and we can celebrate mistakes as learning. This is not always easy as parents. I think our fear kicks in if our children are making mistakes, especially if mistakes are made online, and the response is fear, and fear comes out as possibly anger or frustration. But we need to be mindful that we are encouraging respectful disagreement, and we are there for our children when they make their mistakes, or we're listening to their opinion, which may be different from ours. But online safety is genuinely built in everyday interactions, and it's the human side of the connection that we have with our children, which will enable them to critically consider what their relationship with AI looks like. And digital resilience grows from this critical thinking and emotional literacy. It's so underestimated. We spend so much time talking about tech and digital as a separate part of our world. And the whole idea of online safety being reduced to like a toggle or a switch that you can just make it, you know, make it immediately safe is not the case. There are certainly things that you can do in terms of the toggles and safety requirements. I'll come to that in just a second, and that's important. But genuine digital resilience comes from having this emotional literacy and the ability to think critically. Our children need to know when they're being manipulated. They need to be able to cope with peer pressure. They need to be able to name their feelings now more than ever, because the nuance and the complexity of their social and emotional relationships and their synthetic relationships, that means the ones they have with the robots, they are very real to them, and they're very confusing to children unless they can talk about their feelings. So more than anything, relationship-rich homes are the safest places for children to explore their digital world. That means we have to be available for our children. What do our children need from us as parents and caregivers? And these are what parents are saying right now. I've felt them. Everybody feels them. There's no shame in feeling this. I don't know what they're doing online. They know more than I do. I can't stay ahead of what they're doing online. It's overwhelming. It's confusing. I just hope they'll be okay. This is all understandable. This is a fast-moving target, and it's important to remember that some children are okay. Some children are okay. Some children have more of the emotional intelligence that contributes towards their online safety, their AI safety. But there are things that we need to be aware of, and we as parents, we look at our children with a uniquely parental lens. We know that even if you've got more than one child, you'll have children who are more vulnerable than others. I know with my own children, I've got one who is really tech savvy and is using technology to do really incredibly creative, constructive, productive things. That doesn't mean that he's not susceptible to the vulnerability side, and we still need to have those conversations. I've got another child who uses it as a way to relax and is more of a scroller. And we need to talk about algorithmic literacy and what is it that you're seeing on your feed. But we know within our own children that there'll be some are more vulnerable than others. Some get it more than others. So what is it that we can do? I'm going to give you some really, and they seem overly simplistic, but these are the very simplest things that you can do to support your children in being more connected to them and staying closer to them in this AI-driven, tech-driven world. First of all, if your children are in primary school, and the younger your children, obviously the easier this is to implement. But if your children are in primary, it is easy to remove automatic access to the internet and create a permission-based access. So from now on, is it okay if I go online? What is it that you're going to do? That means you need to explain to your children what it means to be online, which of your devices are connected to the internet. Don't assume that they already know. They'll know what they can do on those devices, but they won't necessarily know that that means being online. So you need to check. Is it okay if I go online? Now, why is this impactful? Well, what we're doing is the same as if your children were going to visit a friend who lives 2 streets away. The chances are they would ask you, can I go and see Jake round the corner? It creates this understanding for the need for caution, where we're nurturing this healthy fear or healthy concern. And that as parents, we need to know where they are. So by having a permission-based access to the internet, it's a trigger to have these conversations. Why are you going online? What is it that you want to do? How long are you going to be on there? Who is it that you're going to be talking to? Again, it's about being present in our children's digital world and being close as possible to our children when they are on devices. And that means that if your children are in primary school, that you are asking them either to stay in the same room as you, or if they can't be in the same room as you, then they need to be in another room with the door open. Again, this is just signaling that you are available, you're physically available to them, and therefore more emotionally available than if they are in a private space. We know that those awful statistics from the Internet Watch Foundation about self-generated content is happening because children are able to take their devices into bedrooms and private spaces like bathrooms. If we have a rule that devices stay out of bedrooms and private spaces, you are dramatically reducing the opportunity for children to be groomed or coerced or accessing highly inappropriate content. We need to start having conversations, and they're not all comfortable, but they should be age appropriate. And we need to have conversations that are around all the positives. Why is it that you like this game? What is it that's so exciting? Why is it that you want you want to look at a screen? Is there something else that we could be doing? I can hear that that game is really making you laugh, or that video is really making you laugh. Why is that? As well as the kinds of conversations around what would you do if you saw something that made you feel a bit funny? What is the emotion that you might feel if you needed me? Would it? And children will not necessarily talk about inappropriate content as being sexualized content or violent content. They will say it made me feel a bit weird, or it made me feel sad or scared or afraid. But we need to give them the emotional literacy so that they can come to you. If we don't start conversations with children when they are young, trying to trigger conversations when children get to this age, and perhaps they're starting, relationships, we still have concerns around sexting and sharing of nudes. If you want to have that conversation, but you haven't preceded this with any of the younger child development conversations, it will trigger a very different response. A child of this age, 14, 15, who is used to talking to their parents and carers around what they're doing online, what they're accessing, what they're seeing, where their slip-ups have been, you will really find it difficult, and you will get a different response from a teenager, as wonderful as they are. We need to be involved with our child's online world. We need to be creating opportunities to trigger those critical thinking skills. And whilst I'm absolutely aware it may not be your preferred way to spend a Saturday afternoon playing Minecraft with your children, it is how you will learn about your child's digital temperament. You will learn about their digital impulsivity. You will really understand the kinds of language that they use, how frustrated they get, whether they are going to react to another player in an inappropriate or non-appropriate way. And if you are talking about that, then you are able to guide and nurture them in a way that is more in line with your family values, with your moral compass. And around social media, we need to be absolutely aware that there are some really fun things that you can do on social media. Let's be real. Getting granny to use the Snapchat filters is always funny the first time. But there is a massive difference between older siblings and cousins getting younger children to take part in a TikTok dance than it is a child of primary age having their own accounts. And if you are, you know, listening to all of the conversations around bans and moving the age limits of access to social media up to 16, you'll have your own thoughts on that. I would love to think that children don't have access to social media until they're older. The reality of us actually implementing it and removing the problem, I'm very skeptical about. And I think that it's a ban is not never really a solution. We know from Australia that children are finding other ways, underground ways to communicate, and we need to not shy away from the education that needs to happen in order to prepare children for this space. But I would absolutely say that if your children are in a primary school, they should not have access to social media. And here are the reasons why. These are the things that you have to consider before children use social media. Now, whether that's 16 or 13, these are the things that you know that children will be exposed to or will have to understand if we are to protect their well-being. They need to know that has been especially nice to them for the last 6 months, and then suddenly is asking them for information about themselves, personal information or videos. Where are these boundaries? And if we think of going back to the playground analogy, without any of those physical cues, that recognition, the face, knowing that this person is a real person, that they know who they're talking to, it is such an abstract space, and children are not equipped to make the necessary decisions that they need to in order to stay safe in that setting. We know that in terms of protecting well-being, that if children are on social media, they will be seeing aspirational images that are not real. So they need to know, and this doesn't mean just mentioning it once, this means on repeat, that faces and bodies that they see on social have been all altered by technology, and that these are not real aspirational features that they need to try to achieve. So this is really, really important if we are to nurture body positivity, and we know it's well documented the impact that technology is having, and the algorithms will find your children. So we know about the algorithms around unattainable body image, pro anorexia content, even pro-suicide content. These are the kinds of algorithms that will find your children, and as soon as they've been, just for a microsecond, they've been curious about a certain kind of content, the algorithm will send them more content. We know that children are interested and curious sometimes about alarming content. The longer they stay on that, the more the algorithm will send them more of that content. Children at the end of primary school have not had enough education around algorithmic literacy in order to nurture their own feeds. So they absolutely should not be in that space. Never to share images and videos online without your permission. I'm speaking to you as a trusted adult. Discuss what you would like your child to do when they see inappropriate content. So you need to have had that conversation about what is inappropriate content, and what you want your child to do when they see it. And I say when, not if, because we know that that social media is not intended for children, but here we are. We've got children in those spaces. We also need to remember that social media is not just Snapchat, Pinterest, and Instagram. We're also talking about anywhere where there is an opportunity for children to be social. And so that's through gaming, that's through chat rooms, that's through WhatsApp. These are also, if you like, social media. Talking about who they might follow and why. We need to nurture those family values, that moral compass, so that, you know, you talk about who you follow on your social media. Why do you follow certain people? You know, Andrew Tate is a perfect example. You've got young boys who are really interested. They might not agree with Andrew Tate, but they want to hear it. But how long is it before the people that your children are following are shaping their opinions and views on the world around them? So you need to be really clear about the kinds of content that they need to steer away from unless the algorithms find them. These are complex questions and conversations for primary age children, and especially this one. Are you ready to explain to your children that some people have an unnatural interest in children and that they might be trying to groom or coerce them in order to get other information from them? If you are, as a parent, not ready to have that conversation, then it's definitely not yet for social media, and you need to be involved in their digital world. Privacy settings and parental controls still matter. They still are a first base of protection, and will reduce the kinds of filtered content that your child will see on any devices. Age limits are there to prolong childhood, but what I would say about this is that you as a parent will also make your own decision around this. You know, it may be that we're talking about a child who's got a lot of older brothers and sisters, or cousins, and actually they do get exposed to a bit of bad language, and maybe as a parent you're actually okay with a bit of bad language, but actually there's other aspects of adult content that you do draw the line under. And this is why it's important to have these regular conversations. Or you might hear that language on that platform, but you know that as a family that's not appropriate to use. Again, it's back to those important, impactful conversations. For younger children, absolutely limit the number of AI friends your child has access to. And the reason for this is because AI is programmed to please you and tell you that you've got everything right. We know that building digital resilience, building resilience for young children is being able to cope with the fact that you haven't always got it right, and that you haven't always got your own way, and that you're not always told what you want to hear. It is so important that we are giving children as many face-to-face experiences, as many screen-free experiences, the younger that they are. This doesn't mean no technology. It means know, with a KNOW, the technology that you are giving to your children, because this is of hyper importance. If you have any toys in your house that have this AI ability to interact, to create these parasocial relationships with your children, please, I'd remove them if I were you. They are really not ready. We are not ready, and our children are not ready for this kind of interaction. That's because of the regulation that we've got, and also what we know about child development. They need to be not soothed by a robot or not interacting with a robot. They need real people. And boredom is not a problem to be solved. If you take anything away from this, it's the permission for our children to be as bored as possible, because boredom is absolutely the birthplace of creativity, finding opportunities to play games, to pretend, to imagine, and to be in this childhood that is in grave danger of being eroded. So I know that there's a few things worse than a bored child, but once you get over that hump and they get used to it, I still say to my children, if they say, "Oh, I'm really bored," I say, "Brilliant, that means you're going to do something really great." And of course they're at the age where they go, "Mom, you are so annoying," but they're used to it, and it doesn't mean that we have to entertain them. It doesn't mean that we default to a screen. It means that we are pushing them to self regulate and self-direct. Creating this safe exposure is genuinely what builds more of the digital resilience. So being hand in hand with our children, having those times together, having times away from screen, understanding that we need to ask critical questions around the kinds of interactions with AI. This is what is going to create digital, savvy, safe, curious, kind humans. And at time more than ever, it's really important that we value what it means to be human. And that brings us to the end. I'm sorry I did go over a little bit, but hopefully you've got some bits to take away and think about. And good luck on your digital parenting journey.